Hey guys, I'm Rick from I'm Rick James Bricks, and that is one big pile of bricks with our amazing guest, Sarah Kate Ward. How are you?
I'm really well. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for joining us
Thank you.
today.
Nice shirt.
I wore the Disney one just for you,
I know you did.
just because you're a colourful person
Looks
and I
fly.
want to be colourful.
This is not your normal style at all, is it?
I always like black. Just call me Batman.
You do. And really crazy shirts.
You know.
Really?
Two extremes.
It's about time to sort of change your black winter clothes for your black summer clothes, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's the time of year.
I didn't think it was appropriate to wear shorts on camera, like because I like to wear bicycle ones to work.
And nobody wants to be blinded by the light.
Yeah. Okay. How have you been? What have you been up to? Firstly, I wanted to say thank you so much for painting our amazing mural for our podcast. It's amazing. You did a wonderful job.
Who knew I could do a mural though?
You
hey?
missed a bit, but that's fine.
Which bit?
All of it.
Stick
That's like
around
a
with
bit
me.
of
Good
it.
stuff. Like honestly,
How have you been? What have you been up to during this crazy time in the last couple of years?
what have I been up to? I've
Yeah.
been doing Lego.
Lego. Well, you're obviously on Lego Masters.
Yes, I was on Lego Masters. Who figured that I would be on Lego Masters? Really?
And painting walls for people. That's the other thing Sarah's been up to.
I don't really paint walls for people. I normally do normal art, but I don't really paint walls for people.
This was your
but-
first one.
Yes, yes.
I'm glad I'm your first.
Yeah, I'm glad about that too.
Winky
That
face.
is so weird. I feel really weird about that now.
I could tell you it was a bit daunting when you first came in and saw the space though. She's like, yeah,
My
I could do
space or
this."
the wall?
The
What are we
wall.
talking
Let's go
about?
with the
it?
wall.
Okay.
We're going with the wall. Yes.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person that goes, yeah, I can do it. And then I go into the room at home and go, no, I can't do it. I want to throw
I
myself
think you
in
did
the
an
bin.
amazing job, all things considered. Like,
yeah.
first
Well,
time
thank you.
painting a wall. Like,
Yeah.
Well, before you even started painting, you came in with the ruler and you were drawing up a grid, weren't you?
I looked very professional, didn't I?
You
I had
did.
no
I thought-
idea what I was
I
doing.
thought, oh, Sarah's doing a great job. Like, and I'm like, oh, okay. Yep, it looks good.
And then we were like, shh, don't go up there, Rick. Just leave her. Like, let her do her thing. She knows what she's doing. And I'd come up and she'd be like, I don't really know what I'm doing.
Did I actually admit that
You
in
know
the
what you're
process of doing the mural?
No. No,
okay.
before the ruling up of the
Yeah.
lines, the grid.
Yeah, no idea what I was doing.
Worked out though, didn't
It
it?
did work.
I don't
Funny
think people
that.
realise how much, there is the Lego thing in Lego Masters, but I don't
Yep.
think people realise that you're actually an amazing artist.
Yeah, I
Like,
think,
you have
well,
a full artist career. Like,
it's really, really interesting because when I went on Lego Masters, that was one of the reasons that I actually got on Lego Masters.
Oh,
So
wow.
I thought that they would actually mention that, but that
but
totally...
they didn't show any of the backstory.
None. I was the mum.
Yeah.
And I'm
course you
like, oh, cool, because I love being a mum, but like I do a lot of other
Do you
things.
think,
That's right.
were you happy with the way Lego Masters edited you and edited you and Fleur as a team? Were you happy with the way the public saw you on television?
To be honest, no. I'm going to say no.
Wow.
I'm going to say no. Only because I think there's... As I said, I like being a mum, yeah? Being
Yeah.
a mum is great, but I don't want to be perceived, and there's nothing wrong with people just being mums, by the way, because I have a lot
Oh,
of
mums
friends.
are awesome, but I also
Great,
think mums
but
can do other things.
we do other things as well. So to say, okay, you're a mum, you're a mum, you're a mum, and it gets repeated 50,000 times. Yeah, but I do this but I do that. And they did a lot of filming of other stuff that we actually did, especially me, which never got included. So
Which is
obviously
really
I
weird.
can't have-
I know you've mentioned to me before they filmed the whole scene with you playing rugby. Is that
They
right?
did. They did. My husband plays rugby. Like, we're a massive rugby family. Kids play rugby.
Mm-hmm.
Son plays rugby. Daughter plays rugby. But we actually had to run in
Hey,
40-degree weather to actually pass a
That's
rugby
Dan
ball. It was
Danzel.
hot as. And they never included any of that. So it was kind of like, why did we do it to
Why
start
did they
with?
make
But
you do
that's
it in
right.
like 35-degree heat playing outside?
was the
I
point?
think it was in between when we could get it done at the time and things like that. So
I always thought it was weird that like they would make sure that every episode they'd be like, we're the mums. Like, and I was like, oh.
We
And
were
then when
actually at a
well,
friend's house at the time when that
That's right.
episode came on.
Yeah.
Wait, we're at Jimmy and
and
Maddie's.
yes,
Yeah,
it
we
was
were.
Jimmy and Maddie. But Maddie and I looked at each other and we both had the same reaction and we went, oh, not the mums. Maddie said, yeah, I know. And we both sort of looked at each other and we said, there's so much more
Yeah.
than just jumping to the, oh, yeah, we're the mums. And that wasn't just on you. That was the way that it was edited as well.
Yeah.
And we said, you'd never see the guys going on,
We're the
fathers,
dads.
we're the dads, this is what we do.
I think it's more about hitting a demographic. I think they go and they check and they have a look who's watching Lego Masters, who's watching, okay, we're going to have the cool guys, You know what I
Yep,
mean? We're
yep.
going to have the nerdy guys, but we have to have the mums. So therefore, I think the age range and how me and Fleur actually where we fitted into being mums, and that's what they did. And we got hammered on social media, to be honest.
Yeah, we saw that. We were very
Because
like, oh.
it's like they're talking about the mums again, mum, 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 and that wasn't the way that I wanted to come across, and it wasn't the way Fleur wanted to come across, but that's the way it was edited.
That's right.
And
yeah.
before actually going on a reality TV show, you think what you're watching is what actually happens, but it's not really. It's all in the editing at the end.
Well, I think that's my biggest fear
right.
because they're always at me to jump on, and I have no filter. Everyone
Yeah.
who knows me knows I have no filter, and I think if I was to go on a show like that, I do believe that it would be edited not in a great light. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I get worried about. And like, you know, unfortunately, Kale had it with season 1, and you know, season 2, you know, is what it is because it was peak pandemic, you know.
Yep.
But like season 3, I think sometimes the editing team lets down the show when there's so much more behind
and
a
the real
person.
skill of the people who are on there. You know, you are more than just mothers.
Well, that's like
Yeah.
like Caroline and I, you know, before, like, I was like, oh, I said to Caroline, oh, Sarah's an artist. You know, when we start talking and, you know, like, I don't like just approaching people and be like, hey, be my friend, because it's a bit weird, this dude who owns a Lego store.
I'd be
like,
your friend anyway.
I know. Winky face. But they, you know, like, I think the biggest problem is that, you know, I didn't want you guys to feel like that I was taking advantage of the situation, the fact that I owned the Lego store. But I'm glad we got to know you because Caroline and I were trying to research all the art that you've done in the past, and
There's
it was so hard
many
to track you down.
There's so much
so
stuff.
many people, women who are named Sarah Ward, Sarah Kate
Ward.
Sarah
There's so
Kate
many.
Ward.
You know that actually is my maiden name. My surname
wow.
is Leavasa Amutunai, so which is
wow.
a Samoan surname. So I use Ward because nobody can pronounce anything else. You know what I mean?
I'm like the whitest guy ever. I would be like, oh, it's Sarah Kate. And not Caroline.
And it means room full of girls in Samoan. So who wants a surname like that? Anyway,
Does it really?
yeah,
Wow, that's amazing.
room full of girls. My husband's happy with that. He wants to marry J-Lo, so we're all good with that. That's his free pass.
Okay.
But I've actually exhibited all over the world. I've sent paintings all over the world. I've done heaps of exhibits in Australia. I mean, there's too many really to mention.
That's amazing.
Please mention them, please.
Oh, Lyndon Small Art Awards. I've gone to Brisbane. I've done commissions for... Do you remember the Goonies?
Yeah.
The Goonies. Chunk.
Oh, wow.
Chunk actually, he ordered a pair of Converse off me.
That's
and
amazing.
Chunk's actually a lawyer in California.
Oh, wow, cool.
So he wanted a pair of Goonies Converse and actually sent them over to him. I did a pair of Converse for Bon Jovi when they were out in Australia a few years
amazing.
ago, and I did a pair of Converse for Pink when she was out in Australia. So there's lots of other things that I have actually done.
Wow.
So to be pigeonholed as
The
Mrs.
mum.
Sarah,
Yeah.
the mum, it was kind of a bit mind-blowing.
And I think, you know, out of anyone that's been on the show, you know, we're lucky enough we've known, obviously, season 1 and season 2, you know. But, like, you would be probably the most talented out of a lot of them. Like, there's Lego
you are
builders.
so
No, but you got to think, too, there's Lego builders. Like, Lego is a hard product to build.
Yeah.
Like, we get it, but anyone can pick up a Lego set and build.
Yeah.
And being on a television is a completely different ballgame with Lego.
Yeah.
But you are better, you know, I think you need to be known outside of the Lego community.
Yeah.
And it's very easy for the Lego community, to their AFOL sitting at home or their mum at home, to criticise people being on TV. But I don't think they realise how much is edited out of the process.
Yep.
And there's so much edited, and, you know, like, I just don't think people don't realise, because, you know, people are very naive. They don't realise what goes on behind the scenes with television shows. They don't understand that it takes a full week to film one episode.
It does, yes.
Like 100 hours,
Yep.
crazy amount of hours, 12, 15-hour days, everyone's under pressure. I just don't think the general person actually understands, and that's what made me get so angry at all the social media hate, because it was like, you guys don't understand.
There was a particular day of filming, and you were talking about there being ice packs on set.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
It was so hot. We were filming. It was, we film in a shed. The air conditioning is fans.
Oh,
I can't remember, but it was 48.
yeah, peak,
But
peak
if-
Melbourne summer.
Oh, it felt like it was a furnace. And I was building Lego and I got so hot that I felt like I was going to pass out.
Wow.
And we can't stop filming. So had a break and just said, look, I'm not feeling well. We get water, we get snacks. So obviously we sort of keep up that way. They actually had to stick ice packs all down my side, all up my back, not just myself, but another contestant as
Wow.
well, so that we could continue on because we were overheating. It's not just the building Lego, it's also the environmental thing. And I think what people don't understand with what you were saying about the filming as well, we watch it for the first time when the audience watches it for the first time.
Because they assume that you get to see it beforehand, but you don't.
And we watch it to think about what bits get left in and what bits get left out and how are we going to be perceived and how is this person going to be perceived. Because at the end of the day, we have absolutely no idea how we're going to come across on television and what they've left in and what they haven't.
And I think too, after like, say, it's a 3-month filming schedule, and those don't know, they used to film it at Melbourne Showgrounds next to MasterChef, one of the cow sheds. I don't think people realise that, 3 months, and you guys came close to winning, 3 months of intense filming, 12-hour days. You forget the camera's there, you forget the microphone's there, you get a bit relaxed. You start feeling like, oh, this is normal. So your filter's switched off.
It is.
And I can see, and I think it was this season I noticed, that some episodes were moulded together. Because you were wearing different clothing in multiple scenes when they approached you.
Yes.
And I don't think the general person who doesn't pay attention, really, who's got it on the background, is like, oh, but I noticed this to Caroline, they're wearing something different. Like, what's going on? Like, and they've obviously moulded 2 scenes together.
Yeah.
And you're sort of like, oh.
Or
And it's easy for me to go and like, oh, Sarah can't build, but you don't know what's happening in the background, how hot it is. You might not have had enough water. Like, all this pressure, there's so much stuff involved.
and
I don't
there,
think people
there were
understand.
times when you were being asked the same questions and being filmed,
Yep.
and then 10 minutes later you were being asked the same question again for more footage.
And I think, that's a really good point. We were away from our families for about 3 months.
And peak lockdown too, right?
Peak lockdown, couldn't see our children, sleeping in hotels, practicing at night time because we wanted to get everything done the next day right, building Lego till 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, trying to sleep, getting up at the crack of dawn and going. We were all totally sleep deprived. And then you would be building, and then something would go wrong. And then all the cameras rush over and they want to ask you questions about what's gone wrong.
Wow.
And you can imagine if you're doing something, whether it's in your work or you've done something or you're working on a car and everything's just fallen apart, you've got a whole group of people then asking you questions, and you've got to try and maintain, oh, I'm really happy, I'm not stressed about this, when all you want to do is curl up into a ball under the desk and die.
Do you think it's a pressure cooker environment created on purpose?
Yeah, I do.
Do you think they purposely try to work you hard, give you the lack of sleep, picking you up early, dropping you off late, so it makes you make mistakes for good television?
It makes you more emotional.
Yeah, you're going to be emotional.
It makes. I know that I need 8 hours of sleep a night. I know while I was filming I got 2, maybe.
Yeah, wow.
Oh,
Maybe
wow.
I got 2, because you get to know what the build is. Then we don't know what the build is until they announce the build. And a lot of people say, oh, we pre-know. We don't. So you've got the night before, you finish the last build, that's done. You've got the night before then, and you're wondering what you're building the next day. And then you're getting stressed about that because you're thinking, is it going to be something in my genre? Is it going to be something that I can build? So you've got all that build-up of that. Then you go in. Then you find out what it is. Then you're not allowed to discuss that with your partner. So then you've got to work out what you're building. Then that night you build or you do whatever for that day. Then that night you then have to practice what you're going to try and build the next day because you don't want it to stuff up. So it's a constant pressure cooker of, okay, we finished, but the next thing is coming. I have to be honest, having children for me was easier than being on Lego Masters.
Wow.
The pressure was immense. It was an awesome experience.
Yeah.
Met some really amazing people, but would I do it again? Absolutely not.
Because
Wow.
your adrenaline is constantly
Well, and
up
what people
so
don't know
high,
at
isn't
home,
it?
Sarah has quite a young child,
Yep.
amazing, beautiful child.
Two,
Luna. Luna's the cutest little
She's
kid
so
on the planet.
cute.
I think a big part of it, you were filming when Luna was quite young.
Yes,
Yep.
you were.
And you couldn't really interact with her. They wouldn't allow you to see him because of the whole COVID rules and restrictions and stuff. That's a driving force as well for you to be emotional on a show.
Yeah, emotional because you can't see your kids. And I have a husband who also has a disability, had an accident at work.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things that he can't do himself. And then I have my mum move in, and that was a disruption. And they weren't getting on, and they wanted to kill each other.
Wow.
So I had to deal with that. And, you know, you've got an 18-month-old child or a 2-year-old child you're missing
Luna's
for
amazing.
3
Love her.
months.
She's cute.
But you're missing all the milestones
Yeah.
of your kids, and all you're thinking about is, oh, God, when can I see my children? When can I see my children? Under the pressure cooker of what Lego Masters is and that whole environment. And it's not a great environment.
No.
It's a creative environment. I find Lego frustrating because being an artist, I can do sculpture and I can do woodwork and I can do whatever, but with Lego you can't really do curves easily, and that's a frustration I have with Lego.
Lego is a very limiting product.
Yeah.
I think that's the appeal for most people. That's limiting, as you can see. You know what, round eggs, but
Yes.
I don't know how it is now, but I know the first season there wasn't enough parts. Like there wasn't enough Lego because
Right.
they were
Variety
just making it up as they go. You know, because that's what happens on a new show.
Yeah.
They didn't know it was going to be
There
successful.
were a lot of 2x4 bricks, just your standard bricks.
Yeah.
They
We
weren't-
had heaps. We had everything we needed.
That's
and if
amazing.
there wasn't something, we could ask for it and they'd put in a drawer. What we found really frustrating, though, is you would have, for example, a part that you needed and it would be in a huge bucket with all the other
that's
colour
the
of the
worst.
parts that you
Yeah.
needed. If you were doing something for Technic and you needed pins, there was a pin bucket and it was this big and this thick. And you needed the blue pins, you'd have to actually wade through it. And I think one build I needed 700 blue pins. So I was sitting there wading through to get 700 blue pins. Now, that is really frustrating. It's
Well,
so
and also too,
frustrating.
Brickman would be the kind of guy, you know, like being like, oh, that one pin is black. That's ruined the build. Like,
Yes.
Yep.
Well, I mean, they're looking for something to differentiate
pick on, right? Like-
the teams.
Yeah, so we'd be there spending hours in the brick pit going through trying to find the right colour of something, or going through tiles. Tiles were all mixed together. So if you wanted a tan tile or a yellow
I just
tile...
hear everyone with OCD at home like crying out like, no.
Yeah, like
can't
you
be
go
mixed.
through it. When you actually watch the program, you don't realise that. You think, for example... A lot of people think, okay, yellow tiles are here, red tiles are here. They're not. They're all mixed together. So half the time you are building, you are actually looking for bits because
Wow.
everything's in huge buckets. And it's so frustrating.
And because the brick
Yes.
pit was COVID safe this time
Yep,
around, yeah.
exactly.
So you could only have X amount of time in there, is that right, from what I heard?
Yeah, you had to go in, you had to sanitize your hands. Only a certain amount of people could actually go in
Makes
there.
sense why half the door, like this, the last 2 seasons, the door was like half open instead of fully open, because I guess they're going to monitor how many people in and out in a active space, I suppose, right? Like,
Exactly, and they don't like you building in the brick pit because they want you building at your desk.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you're doing intricate characters or you're building an animal and you don't know what parts you're going to use, to go back and forth from I've forgotten I need this part. And you
Yeah.
have to go back, where a lot of us actually ended up building in the brick pit and we'd be going, you need to come out of the brick pit because we didn't know what parts we needed. And it was just a back and forth, back
well, I
and forth,
think
back
too,
and
when
forth.
you're creating something, I don't create as much as I used to, but when you're creating something, we're lucky enough we've got a brick wall here. You can
Yeah.
just grab whatever you need. Like,
Yep.
I think the most frustrating part, if you're having to travel, and I don't know how far your
You had to
desk was,
run, I
you're having
felt
to run.
Yep.
Like, it's exhausting
It
in a
is.
hot building, smelly, stinky,
It
running
is.
across and getting in there trying to figure out. By the time you get there, you're like, oh, I forgot what part I needed.
And
Like,
Yeah.
if you slip, if there's a piece of Lego on the floor, you're going to slip.
Yeah, even the fact of
like-
when we had to, like, I found it really, really stressful. For example, if we were doing a big build in
Yeah.
parts and we'd finish our build and we'd have to get it over there and slot in our table, sometimes we'd have pieces of Lego on the floor. So you'd be going, and you'd be like, oh, because if it falls apart...
and then if it like breaks on the way, right? Like,
If it breaks on the way, you can't fix it. I think people don't realise that if it breaks on the way, you cannot fix it. And you're on a time limit as well. So, and sometimes they actually film you taking the table to the end build multiple times.
Oh,
So
that's
as
the-
well,
Yes.
well. So you've got your table and you've got it over there. I mean, we had a couple of builds that were like this, like a lot of people do, and you've got it in there, and you're like, and it'd be like,
that's
oh
good.
no, we didn't get Michael's face, do it again. So then we have to pull it all out, slot it back in, and then go again. And it's not, if you have to put it back together, it takes time for things to be
Yes.
put back together
Yeah.
as well. So It's
You don't
really
get that
stressful the
chance.
whole time.
Did you get along with everybody on the show?
I'm going to say I did get along with everybody on the show, but everybody had very, very different personalities. So you gravitate towards certain people, whereas you don't
Yes.
gravitate towards other people. And I think they chose people because they were very different.
Was there some drama that they filmed but didn't show at the end product?
There's heaps of drama that they
Yes.
film that they don't show at the end product.
all
Not that
about
I'm going to tell you what the drama
creating
is, but
drama.
Yes,
there's
don't tell
heaps
him.
of stuff that they film that they don't show at the end product. So when we're watching it as contestants,
Yes.
we're like, oh, where's that bit? That's not in there. Oh, okay. Oh, really? Because you're kind of like quite questioning how things actually get to the end result when you know
Yeah.
what's happened behind the scenes.
Or as we were talking about just earlier, when we were talking about the rugby game, you're not even seeing that, and you think we put all that effort into that day's filming. Where is it?
Oh, well, there's so many great things, like David, who is just hilarious, said so many funny things during the whole of filming. None of that was included. So you're sitting there for the first time going, oh, okay. I was disappointed with how I was depicted on the show personally.
Wow.
I do know a lot of other people were.
Yeah.
Was it an amazing experience? Absolutely. Were the crew amazing? Yes, they were. But at the end of the day,
I did feel, and I did say this to Rick, that the clothing choices, I didn't feel it reflected you, so I questioned whether it was your clothes.
no, what my clothes.
Your clothes. And the same with Fleur. Is that right?
I think Fleur's kind of developed that style now because she wears that style now.
Yeah, I've
after the
noticed that
show.
from social media. Yeah.
Me, not so much. I'm more of a very sort of cash black wearing person. Obviously, you can't wear black on camera. And I'm always painting, so I'm always covered in paint. So I could classify myself a bit of a dag, but my kids would be watching the show and they'd be going, oh my God, Mum, what are you wearing? And I'm like, yeah, I know.
Do you think that styling choice is so they can fit a category? Like,
Absolutely.
so they could have like, you're just the mum and not the creative? Is that, you think that's the angle they were going for?
I absolutely think so because I do think when they cast a show like Lego Masters, they are fitting people into a certain box. So as far as clothing wise, you have to fit into the certain box. You probably noticed, Scotty and Owen, they were the cool dudes. They were wearing something certain, they were wearing a certain type of clothing. Michael, Harry, they were wearing more of the college boy type clothing. It's all to fit people into a certain dynamic. Whether you actually are like that in real life is another story altogether.
Well, I think too, I just, I've managed to have multiple interactions with various Lego Masters contestants over our time due to the nature of the business. And I've found some not to be so friendly and some to be friendly depending on which angle you want to approach them at. And I think, what's made it hard for season 2 and season 3, obviously the obvious is the pandemic, but we haven't been able to host meet and greets like we've
we
able
could
to
on
in the
first
past.
season.
Like the company behind Lego Masters didn't want us hosting anybody, and it's been quite difficult. I know everyone's getting kind of frustrated.
Yeah.
And, I guess it's the nature of the beast, but I think I find that the Australian Lego Masters teams are more restricted than any other on the planet.
Really?
Yeah, I find that the American ones, they could promote their own businesses.
Yeah.
Like straight away, like on their Instagram, you could be like, hey, I sell, I don't know, whatever it is, I sell Lego at this store, or I work here. Where I notice your social media and everyone else's was controlled by the mothership.
Very
Correct.
early on.
Very early on, which I find very interesting, which to me, coming from a social media background, I find it very weird and very interesting that they were so restrictive when I think it's the new season of America, there was a team there selling some stuff, and I was like, oh, they're allowed to do that? Like, I just found it very weird. I don't know, I think it's the nature of the business in Australia sometimes is a bit disconnected from the rest of the world with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, look, they do take over your social media because they want to be in control of what you actually post.
I guess I don't want you saying anything inappropriate against the company, I guess.
Or posting anything appropriate that
Yeah.
would be seen as not being within what Lego Masters do. I guess that's
Well,
what
I'm probably,
they need to cover.
representing Lego too, like it's
Yeah.
a family-friendly product. They don't want anything inappropriate on television, which I understand,
Yeah.
I just find it very interesting that everything was so restricted, and I felt like this season out of previous seasons, dealing with the company has been more difficult than normal, and I'm not too sure why. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. We approached them multiple times. Sometimes you'd get emails, and sometimes you wouldn't even get a response. So I'm just not too sure, maybe change of management or something like that, I don't know.
I think there's a lot of expectation between myself and other contestants that we would actually get more afterwards.
We tried
for the
because
Lego
we,
show.
you know, like without going into things too much, you know, obviously we had season 1 and we had thousands of people turn up at the store, and we try to replicate that with season 2. Obviously, it was peak pandemic, we couldn't.
Yeah.
Season 3, we had that small window. You know how we had that window? I think it was like
A few weeks.
where we were
Yeah.
like, oh, we could do something, we could sneak it in. Because there was no, I say that very loosely, no COVID in Victoria. But, you know, obviously things have changed. But I just find it like, if I was in charge of the show, I wouldn't make it so restrictive, because at the end of the day, you guys are a product. You're selling a product. Wouldn't you want them at every toy store, every Lego store, everything that sells Lego in Australia, the opportunity to meet Sarah? And I just feel like they didn't really have it. I think they had one meet and greet. I think it was Knox.
Yeah.
Or something like Doncaster, I think.
It was Doncaster. It was
Yeah.
like outside a store in Doncaster there. But a lot of people also, I think, went on Lego Masters, not me, but a lot of people went on there because they thought it was going to be some sort of launching platform for something more. And it hasn't
see.
turned out that way for them.
Do you think it's the pandemic, or do you think it's just because it's the nature of the business?
I think it's a bit of both,
Yeah.
to be honest.
And getting back to the producers or whoever it is on Lego Masters who controls your social media, once the finale has happened and you get your social media back, do you get any support when you might have people, you know, maybe trolling you?
Myself and Fleur, we got very, very badly trolled. To the point where it affected us mentally, both of us.
I'm so sorry.
Look, wasn't expecting it, but it came down to the edit.
Yes.
Okay,
And also, were they there to support you, to deal with that?
Well, they do have a psychologist who you can actually talk to. That is not something that I would actually do. I'm not really comfortable with that. There were numerous times where I actually emailed, because people say don't read
but
what
you
people
can't help
are
yourself.
saying
I'm
on
the same.
social
I just
media,
can't
but
help
you
it.
get overexcited and you want to read it. And then when it's negative, you go, I wasn't expecting it. To be honest, I wasn't expecting it, and Fleur wasn't expecting it. And I think we copped it more than anybody else. We really didn't get a lot of support with that.
I'm really disappointed in this. Like, we have social media, and I cop, you know, it is what it's the nature of the business. I knew what I was getting into when we started social media for our business. I understand the nature of the game. I understand people are not going to like you. It is what it is. But you guys have come on this television show. You had an amazing experience. You're building with Lego. It's a toy. You're expecting the back end support.
Yeah.
And I truly believe the social media teams that managed those pages weren't there to do it. I could see negative after negative comment. I try not to get involved, because I know once I get involved, it's going to be, you know, bad. But like, we posted a video trying to support you guys. I just feel like that the back end support was so lackluster that we're quite lucky that it didn't end in anything unfortunate.
Yeah, and the thing is, they started removing comments. But the only reason really they started removing comments is myself and other contestants started emailing and saying, you need to do something about what's going on with Fleur and Sarah on public media. It wasn't just myself and Fleur, it was other contestants on our season that were actually being affected by what was being said about me and Fleur, started emailing, and there's the social media team and saying, you need to have a look at these comments, you need to start removing things. And they did. But
why did it take so long?
It shouldn't have taken so long. And it had, and what happened was it had to be us reaching out going, hey, what are you doing with social media, before anything got enacted in that respect.
I'm actually quite surprised, because, you know, like, the channel that it's aired on, without saying too much, like, they post about Are You OK Day. Like, it's all this, we're here to support people, but, like, really the team doesn't.
You
The
quite
social
clearly...
media team wasn't there to protect you guys when you needed it the most.
And you know, it wasn't just, look, fair enough. If somebody doesn't like your build, that's fine, because everybody has different techniques
we all
and
build
things
differently,
that they do.
right? Like,
but when people are writing, wrinkly old ladies, or calling you a bad mother, or saying derogatory things about the
It's
way
so
you
disgusting.
look, the way you dress, that's when it oversteps the line in that respect. And there are a lot of reality TV shows that do also have Facebook pages that cut comments. They will
have to
post
limit it.
something and limit comments, but it seemed to be, it was a free-for-all on the Lego Masters page. It was an absolute free-for-all.
we had a few very average comments, and
Yep.
I try, you know, everyone I speak to, they say, don't get sucked into
Not
social media, blah, blah.
necessarily.
I just track them down. So if they were to say something negative, there was one example, we had a teenager say something really bad.
But not about us. It wasn't
not about us, but it was about, you and Fleur. And I was like, right.
To us.
I went to their social media account. I found out who their mum and dad was, and I messaged them and I said, I don't think this is acceptable behaviour. They got back to me. They were really good about it and they were apologetic. But I said, but now it's too late because the damage is done.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not my job to shield people from getting abused on social media from a television show that's about a product.
That's right.
And I don't understand why the social media team based around that show wasn't there to stop it from the start. It just blows my mind that in the world that we're in, everyone is hurting. We're all suffering. We all have mental health issues. We all carry a lot of baggage.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the first to admit I carry the most. I get it. But their job is to protect people on a show that's about a toy, about how you build, not about how you look, how you speak. You're meant to be protected. And I didn't feel like you were. And, Caroline and I reached out to you guys. Nearly every time it aired, I was like, you guys okay? Because I could see it was just... And it was bad. I just couldn't wrap my head around it.
It was terrible. And me and Flo were messaging each other because we were quite distressed about it. So we were self-supporting each other with that as well. And there were periods where we disconnect our social media and then reconnect
We have
my
to
social
because
media.
you just don't want to see it.
But why is this still happening? We are in season 3 now.
Yep.
They need to be proactive. They're reacting to a
season
problem
4 soon, right?
Because you're just emailing. That's the only reason. Had you not emailed...
Would have stopped.
No, I don't think it would have stopped.
And, if something unfortunate happens, they would be to blame. The weight would be on their shoulders.
Correct.
Because social media, we all know social media is a dangerous place. And it's very focused on now how people use words. And words can cut you deep. You could be having a good day. Even in retail, someone says something bad to you, your day's finished. You're feeling terrible the rest of the day.
Yeah.
But if it was me, I would have a team of people sitting on the computer as soon as it aired, delete. Because I see comments on our page that sometimes I remove that are inappropriate, unsavable. Very personal attacks. We get quite personal attacks to our page.
Yeah.
Because, a result of the disease is I slur my words. And sometimes I don't speak good.
Yeah.
And it happens, right? But I have to remove them and block them, and that's my job because I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to see comments about our stuff.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around why they didn't have a team to check up on you to see if you were okay.
Yeah.
Because it got quite disgusting and quite brutal.
It was terrible.
It was very vicious.
I have children. I have a teenage daughter. I have a 10-year-old son. My teenage daughter has social media. She knows better than to write things on social media like what was written about myself. And also, I actually did read the social media. Some of the people that were commenting were high school teachers.
Wow.
They were police officers. They were firemen. And you have to think to yourself, I've always been taught not to write something that you wouldn't want written about you. To always try and find the good and the kind. But people seem to be getting on their keyboards, whether it's because they're just unhappy in their own lives, and pick anything they can say to get a reaction from somebody. And the thing is, what they are after is a reaction.
That's the thing.
And they egg each other on.
I think that's like the fuel to the fire, right? They say each other, they egg each other on. And, unfortunately, season 1, Kale had it quite a bit as well. I think it's just people who have nothing else better to do, but don't realise that how much weight is behind a word.
Yeah.
And how much damage you can do in the long term.
And, I've met Kale personally a couple of times. I'm not a person that judges people based on what other people say about them. I'm very big about that. So somebody can say, you don't like this person, I don't like this person, this is why. But I never judge a person until I meet them. And every interaction I've had with Kale has been absolutely lovely. And he was a big support to me when we were being bullied online.
Oh, fantastic.
So... it's okay for people to sit there and go, I don't like this person, I don't like that person, I don't know what's happening. For one, you don't know what happened behind the scenes to start with.
Well, that's the thing. I just don't think people are realising how much is going on in the background.
Yeah.
And I think a big part that people can take from this episode in particular is that you need to be teaching kids and even adults, some grown adults need to realise that people are reading what you're writing online, and I don't think they realise the damage it has and how much of an effect, because it can linger. It can linger. Like, things have been said to me in the past. When I got sick, we had a customer that came in store that made fun of me because I was shaking.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
I still hold that weight. We were talking about it earlier. I still hold that weight because it still affects me, because I'm like, oh my God, like...
and it's interesting. It's not just us. It's not just the people that are being bullied. For example, I'm really excited that I'm on Lego Masters. I can't share any of that because if I share any of that, everybody sees those comments. Now, my family saw those comments.
That's a shame.
And my dad and my mum
Oh,
saw
your
those
dad's
comments,
awesome.
and they were absolutely devastated. And I know the same with Fleur. Her family saw those comments, and
Yeah,
they
we
were
had Fleur's mum reach
absolutely-
out to us actually and say thanks. Because it was just...
It's
I just
devastating.
couldn't
Yeah.
wrap my head around it. Well, I think we've covered everything
think so.
without getting too passionate and anyone getting into trouble.
Strangers in the night. I'm available for hire.
If you want to hire
OnlyFans.
Sarah,
OnlyFans.
well, that escalated quickly. I didn't realise Lego Masters didn't pay that well. I just want to say a big thanks to Sarah for joining us. Well, I just lost my train of thought, but anyway, you can follow her on social media. We'll put all the links and all that jazz, but you can follow her. You can search her on Instagram. Sarah Kate Ward is the one word, I think.
Yes.
It is, yeah. And also she sells merchandise on her Instagram, painted bags, painted shoes, all that jazz. Make sure you keep an eye on it.
And all that jazz.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I sing at birthdays.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks,
Thank
guys. Thank you
you.
so much.